It's live. Can I do funny colors and stuff? I like them. Google Effects. Google Effects is all the stars and stuff, right? Am I having audio and shit? For God's sake. Always something wrong. Entertainment. So my thought on entertainment is that I think, often entertainment compared to art, people think, oh, it's um, you know, art is better, fancier, it's more something good, and entertainment somehow more lowly. And yet as such, humans obviously react more strongly, I think, to what we call entertainment than art in general. Maybe possibly could say that some scale. And I don't really believe that. I think it's just a different. Oh, the echo has started. So now people can see me. That's how long the delay actually is. Um, so where was I? Yeah, I think entertainment actually has to do about our conscious mind getting entangled with the object. Let's just call it an object. We could call it a situation, whatever. That we're comparing X Y Z is entertaining versus it's artistic. Um, I think there's a division. It's not just like the show gets better and better and better until suddenly it's art. No, I think that art, you can wander around a museum and just kind of absorb the art. You don't necessarily, and you can enjoy your time in the museum, but you're not necessarily consciously thinking of every single picture. And whereas entertainment, if something is entertainment, if a person finds Sudoku entertaining, for example, then that means their conscious mind just gets wrapped up in it. So if some little event is entertaining, I once watched one of the most entertaining things I've ever seen was I watched for like 4 or 5 minutes a bird chase a moth. The moth was going around. The moth was doing all kinds of ninja uh, aerobatics, and the bird was less of that, and more doing these hops that would be with hopping around trying to get it because it was happening close to the ground. And I thought for sure that moth would get away, but it didn't. And it was a tragic ending for the moth. But boy, I just couldn't take my eyes off that. I was consciously engaged with that, and that can kind of happen with anything. Uh, I like watching rivers and just watching sticks and then watch them come down. Now, some people would not find that entertaining. To me, it was entertaining and is entertaining because I become consciously interlinked to it. So, yeah, I didn't announce this week's thing except for that I scheduled this an hour ago. I've just been too busy. I'm actually this weekend working on a programming problem for a potential employer. So, which was an interesting thing. I would love to say what it was, but you know what? Interview questions can be proprietary, so let's just not do that. But so so where is the entertainment versus art? Right. And I think good art often is entertaining, which would mean that it consciously engages you. Like your conscious mind sits there and starts to be entangled in all of its interpretations, as opposed to just letting the thing soak in. And so a good medium for considering entertainment and artistic qualities at the same time is film, because in film, uh, I think obviously most people acknowledge, I think these days, that film can be art. And really great films have the quality of both being artistic, which to me means that there's a meaningful philosophy to the work, and that there's an intentional creation of a particular illusion, the illusion being the work of art, and it's an intentional creation, and there's an intentionality to it. Um, in a film that has those qualities, that is also entertaining, uh, that's the highest form of art. So being entertaining often enhances the work of art. And we could see this most easily in film. It's hard to see, I think, in other mediums, or not as easily seen. But like with Shakespeare, uh, Hitchcock. Now, one could argue that actually his films are entertaining and they lack an artistic element, that he was just a really good filmmaker and that he was manipulating human emotions, possibly mechanically, to achieve an entertainment, right? To achieve your a conscious interaction with his work, right? To keep you on the edge of your seat where you're paying attention. Um, but I mean, I don't think most people would say that. I mean, my personal view is that the whole emotional philosophy that Hitchcock brings to his works about how people think and feel, and including their unique parts, that one person has a particular reaction and others would have a different reaction in the same situation, that all of that is his comprehensive philosophy that he brings to his films, so that his films are, they maximize artistic and um, entertainment values. So I think a lot of this then is going to come back to consciousness. Now, another issue with entertainment is, and again, I'll stick with films for now. There's problems with using film to think this through, but it's also very accessible, and again, it has this dual thing. We've seen films that are meant as pure entertainment that can succeed at that, and we've seen artsy films that we might go, that was interesting, but I didn't find it entertaining or whatever. Or maybe it wasn't interesting, but I admit it was art, but I didn't like it, Um, is Requiem for a Dream is a good example, because Requiem for a Dream, I don't know, it's a film, if you've seen it or not. It's very dark. It's about addiction and just the most negative film, just depressing and terrible. I think it's a great film. It redeems all the negativity through having a very coherent philosophy or a statement about its subject matter. It's consciously constructed this illusion of a chain of events of imaginary people that feels like it has a realism because it exists as this um, network of concepts, right? Which is a philosophy of a work. And it captivated me consciously, this film, when I watched it years ago. I haven't seen it again. It's too hard of a film to rewatch, but it's a great film, and the cinematography is captivating. But it's so horrible. I would hesitate to call that. Oh, hey, inventive.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I'll just finish this sentence for the recording. But I was talking about Requiem for a Dream being a film that was captivating consciously, which I was relating to what I think entertainment is, but being a kind of film that I wouldn't want to call entertaining just because it was so horrible. But I think my definition, my attempt at a technical definition of what entertainment is, um, you know, there's a problem there, because definitely it's consciously activating. But anyway, so you didn't probably hear the first part of what I was talking about. But have you seen this film, Requiem for a Dream? Did you notice I was wanted to talk about sort of philosophy of entertainment?
I saw your the description of the video, and it said,
Yeah.
what's the difference between entertainment and enjoyment? Um, I saw the movie, but it's been so long, I don't remember what
Well, I
happened.
could probably sort it out for you. It's pretty memorable, but if when I remind you. But yeah. So I've been pretty busy this week, and I'm working on a coding problem from a phone interview on Friday, and they're like, "Okay, great, let's do this." And it's like homework. It's pretty interesting, but so I was up till dawn working on that, so I didn't announce this, but I should have, because I had decided that I thought I'd like to do this topic. But anyway, Requiem for Dreams, that one, it's about a young couple that are addicts, become heroin addicts, and the dude's always stealing his mom's TV set, and she goes down to the pawn and pays for it again, and he, and their situation just gets worse and worse. It's famous for the cinematography is when they're doing their drugs, various ones, but it does these really quick, just kind of shots where the needle's being pulled out, or the eyes are dilating, and basically it just gets worse and worse until in the end the woman is prostituting herself out to these really weird rich dudes, and it's just entirely very negative. It's just a bad story. Any hope you have that somebody would figure something out, any sympathy you have for the nice characters, or from the two characters that are becoming the addicts, hoping that they would not become worse and worse people. No, they just become worse and worse people, and it's not done in a way where they get their just comeuppance. It's just like, no, this is, and it's really this warning. It's so dark. I'm sure we could probably think of another film. I mean, just sometimes there's really hard films that are really great art, and they're interesting to watch, but there's something about the word entertainment. You don't want to call them entertainment. Like, it's sick. Clockwork Orange. Okay, Clockwork Orange, tremendously difficult film to watch. Stanley Kubrick. It's got it's art. It's also entertaining. Yet, what are you going to say? I was entertained by Clockwork Orange. You know what I mean? It's so horrible. You wouldn't want to call it entertainment. But my definition of entertainment, you would just have to admit it, because when I'm saying entertainment as opposed to art is that when something consciously, it's like consciously engages your willful, it engages your willful conscious mind, so something little like a little word puzzle, the word jumble, is entertaining to people because their conscious mind weaves its way into all the little facts and can kind of focus and have conscious thoughts about this thing, this XYZ, whatever it is, the puzzle. And so, I think that's what's behind entertainment. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. What is the difference between entertainment and art? And I could have a lot of potential distinctions. I used to think it was kind of a matter of quality, whether you did it for yourself or for the audience. That used to be my own theory. But I think now that it's possible to at least add that. Maybe there's truth in certainly in other ways of looking at it, but I think it has to do with consciousness. I think entertaining things engage your conscious mind, but maybe that's weak too, because there's definitely this zenning out. Like, sometimes you could do something entertaining that's just, it's like you fuzz out and you aren't thinking about it. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's some gray area there, right? Right. If you say, like, if we're talking about the difference between entertainment and enjoyment,
Yeah.
it seems like entertainment is more deliberate. Like, there's someone doing the entertaining, where I might just enjoy a sunset, but I wouldn't call that entertainment.
Right.
But then if you talk about the difference between entertainment and art, then entertainment needs to be enjoyable, I guess, rather than art doesn't need to be enjoyable.
Is that the thing?
I don't know. It's
Well, honestly, I don't know if I enjoyed Clockwork. So what about Clockwork Orange? You familiar with Clockwork Orange?
I love that movie.
Okay, so there we go. Okay, so you got a dark movie. I'm willing to be a postmodernist, go, I enjoyed it, blah, 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 but really it's not that enjoyable. The scenes are like, oh my God, and oh no, and now I'm going to feel sorry for the guy that is the crap. It's excruciating movie. And I like that as a piece of art. But it's entertaining. You can't say it's not entertaining. Or can.
I laugh at it. I think Requiem for a Dream sounds like much more harder to watch movie to watch. Where Clockwork Orange is kind of tongue in cheek, and
you think of it as tongue in cheek. Well, what? Okay, so but wait a second, man. You're just a little bit younger than me, so we're basically the same generation. I think that if you think of it now, I could see it being considered tongue in cheek. But if you put it as to when it was made, that was the darkest thing I'd ever seen in a film, probably, at the time. You know what I mean? It's so, yeah, I don't see the tongue-in-cheek part except in retrospect. Or if I think about Stanley Kubrick, I know where he's coming again as a film, because he's making these philosophical statements. But if you just immerse yourself in that film, it's a horrible experience that you're having. If it was a virtual reality.
I don't know. I just, like the part where they come in, there's a big fight between them and a rival gang.
Yeah.
and Alex
Well,
says
there
something
is a
one
lot of
time,
okay. Yeah, I
"You
see a lot of the very
fucktards, you blah blah blah," and
no.
his
There is a
favorite
lot of
song.
that actually. Yeah, or just the way they use the classical music and the pop culture that they have. There's a lot of laughable elements. Right. Well, there is a yeah. Okay, there's a dark comedy on how pathetic the characters are in the first place, how much they misunderstand themselves and what's really motivating their behavior, and how easily they could be changed with behavioralism. And there is a dark humor. Yeah, I didn't see that probably for until years later. To me, when I first watched it, I mean, I was pretty young, and it just blew me away. I'm like, I couldn't believe what I'd seen. And, I mean, I think I saw it when I was like 12 or something. I managed to catch this on Showtime late at night with the family asleep.
You know, there's the Gladiator movie, right? And so
Hmm.
the guy gets captured and he's forced to be a gladiator, and he's on the side that's supposed to die, but because he's this brilliant tactician general, right? He wins and he kills all the people that are supposed to kill him when he's in the arena, right?
Hmm.
And the crowd's looking at that like, oh, should we applaud or not? And he yells at them, "Are you not entertained?" And then they start clapping, right? So um, I think violence has been a form of entertainment for since Rome, right? Like
Hmm.
that's the whole
Yeah,
point
that's an
of the whole
interesting point.
gladiator thing.
But it's this enjoyment thing then. Like right now, video games, there's obviously a predominance of violent ones, and I think when we get to where that medium is more continues to take over more, it's more spread out, we're going to see a spectrum like you see with films, and there obviously still will be quite violent ones. So even though I think overall we'll see more games in the future that aren't this way, right now there's a lot of ultra violence, and obviously we would say people do this for enjoyment. Huh.
I guess maybe in some ways the violence is, you've got this,
So they're enjoying violence,
you've
but
got
they're
this
not really
thing.
violent people. So what's that supposed to mean?
Well, maybe they are really violent people.
Exactly.
We've got this underlying lizard animal inside us,
Uh,
right? That wants to rape and kill and do all these things, part of
yeah, no,
survival and that
I don't believe
thing.
that.
You don't believe the ego, the id.
No, I don't believe that it's that kind of a thing. I believe our animal nature is interesting. It's obviously monkey class of subclass of mammal, but I think what makes us love this extreme violence that we have in video games is our experience as being slaves the last 2 to 5, maybe 10,000 years, depending. But probably 700 years of it or something for a lot of us. It depends, but I think that the psychological, basically like social level, like like our zeitgeist has PTSD from that, and I think that's where it comes from because I just don't see the kind of reveling violence that we enjoy anywhere in the natural kingdom. I don't think it's quite the same thing as, and also I don't see us as coming from predators like cats, where obviously there's probably some orgasmic pleasure to the blood feast. I don't see much of that in our evolutionary history. So I see more like, well, we can see that as humans now and understand this coevolution of another creature, and we can imagine it in a small way. But there's some aggression, but even in chimpanzees, as aggressive as they've turned out to be, um, I guess so. There's room, but anyway, they're still not predators. That
Yeah, I'm not a psychologist. I don't have
well, I'm not doing it from a
any
psychology. I don't want to look at it from
but
a psychological point of view. I mean, I just want to muse about it. But
yeah. There's this one time we were Grand Theft Auto 3 had just come out, and so we went down to our friend's house and we were playing that game and stealing cars and shooting police officers and doing all the stuff that you do in Grand Theft Auto 3. Um, and after we left the house very late at night, we were driving home, and police cars started following us. And they had nothing better to do at 2 o'clock in the morning. They're just following us around. And my friend just got nervous and swerved because it just felt like we'd been out all night doing all these horrendous acts, right? And then
Yeah.
here are some real police officers. Um, and so it's just one of those times when reality and fantasy seem to kind of clash a little bit. And so they pulled us over for swerving a little bit. And
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, it's funny. I talked to one dude I didn't know, but just a casual conversation one time. He was saying about how just that day the cop pulled behind him and wasn't necessarily following him, but he'd just been playing Grand Theft Auto, and he just totally had the urge to just floor it. He had really had to fight it, and he was just laughing about it because, so he was in control enough not to do it. But exactly, yeah, because there's a part of our brain that doesn't distinguish between the virtual and real experiences we've just been having. Yeah, that's a fun one too. That's a funny one too because like I really like the sandbox aspect. I've only played a little bit of the missions when I played the those games. Saints Row was one of them I played. I think number 3. I might have played the most, more than any others. That there was somebody had it, and you do the stories, and that's one thing. Mostly, I just love running around, stealing cars, getting in trouble with the cops, set up a big cop chase, and that is super entertaining.
it
That's
is, it
entertaining.
is, and yet a lot of people are as shocked by that as they are for Clockwork Orange or Requiem for a Dream. That they see this kind of thing, they're like, "This is bad. We need to stop these Grand Theft Auto games." Um,
Well, I like Call of Duty. I had played on my Wii. I don't really like those kind of games with controllers, but the Wii, had a good controller for it, and I got into that. But again, there was a dichotomy there because the story I found just terrible. I mean, you're forced to. The example I always use, this is probably the worst one, is they have a cutscene in that game when you're playing story mode, where just from the movie, the cutscene, you break some glass and you put it in the guy's mouth, and then it cuts back to you, semi-interactive, right? You don't have the full 3D active of the game, but you've got some. You're in the, you know what I mean? So semi-cutscene, but you've got to punch him in the mouth, and then he talks or whatever, some stupid bullshit. And this is related to the Vietnam War, and so that that was supposed to be entertaining. I don't get where the entertainment of that comes at all. To me, it's like a lack of perspective or something. Whereas the game itself, when you're just in paintball mode, I love that, and I play this game on here that's kind of more like Quake style, a high speed, what they call it, ego shooter or whatever. I love that kind of game. So, but I guess I have trouble. I don't know. I don't really.
I like
This
this one
violence.
movie.
Why is violence entertaining? I don't think I find violence entertaining.
It's the action that's entertaining,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Yeah, like
like there's
paintball.
this.
It's not violent, right? Paintball's not
Mhm.
violent, or would it be? Let's get our terms on the table. Is paintball violent?
I would say no.
Yeah, no. So that's an aspect, and that's what I like out of the Call of Duty.
Like there's this one director. He made this movie called Super, which is about this, you know, kind of vigilante guy. Um,
Hmm.
and it's an interesting movie where it gets the action builds and you kind of get into the action and then it goes bad or it gets really gory just out of nowhere.
Hmm.
And then it's not enjoyable anymore. I think that's just an interesting approach
Yeah.
to the film, is to kind of
Well, this
exploit.
complicates it because plenty of filmmakers do that, right? They pull you in with, they know the formula of attracting your attention with entertainment or just whatever noises, squirrel, and they do it just to bring you to a moment where they're like, aha, now you're gonna hate this. Look, I'm an artist. Fuck you. Kind of, and I kind of felt like there is an element of that in all dark films, but I appreciate that's what they're trying to do, and it's not really fuck you. It's more like, look, this is a way for me to show, this is how we can discuss a horrible idea, but it's kind of by tricking you into it, and then it might not be enjoyable. And that's what I was saying about Requiem for a Dream, and also Clockwork Orange. I mean, I would say, I don't rewatch that film because I don't actually enjoy it. I appreciate it I would watch it again to analyze it. If I was at film club every week discussing a film with my fellow film lovers and we got assigned or Clockwork Orange, I'd happily go watch it and analyze it. But I just sit down to enjoy it. It's not that kind of a thing. So what about a more mild enjoyment? Just as, you know, my technique in always is to just try to put up all these, as many cases that touch on this word that I'm considering, right? So another thing was just like small things like, do you like any, you know, crossword, puzzles, Sudoku, solitaire? Is there any, now, because we were talking about entertainment where you're getting entertained, and I agree that's a big part of the framing of entertainment is entertainer. And this is, but that gets into entertainer versus artist type thing, which is important, but I also want to avoid. But anyway, so in terms of solitaire stuff, are there any like idle, do you like it puzzles of any sort? Your
I
Sudokus
used to. I haven't been playing anything recently,
well,
so
I'm old,
maybe
yeah,
not.
so anything I've enjoyed like that I don't necessarily do now, but um, I played solitaire, or when I take a break from work, I usually either play this high pass game or I play Tetris. There's a free version of Tetris you can easily get in Linux. Actually, there's multiple ones, but I play one called Eltris. It's pretty good, and you know, I find that entertaining. So why is that entertaining? I mean, it's just so simple. This is one way to ask philosophically, what is entertainment really? Is okay, let's get down to something that's just the little tiniest pixel of entertainment, just one, it's obviously just one little drop worth of entertainment, you know, which is the stamp collecting or the, you know, the things people do that seem simple. Um, so
Maybe
why do people
sitcoms.
do those? Sitcoms, interesting.
Right, like sometimes I won't
Yeah,
want
you're
to
right.
watch
That
YouTube
is, isn't that?
because YouTube's all heavy. So I'll just turn on Netflix and turn on Friends or Jerry Seinfeld or whatever, right? Just to like, it'll turn the
You know what?
brain
I just
off.
rewatched the whole Ellen sitcom. Did you ever watch Ellen? I watched it when it was on,
Uh,
but I'm a little bit older. I think you would have, I might have missed you on that one. But Ellen, you know, it was a big deal because she came out on that show. Ellen DeGeneres had a sitcom. Did you
Yeah, I
know?
remember the show. I never did watch it. Um,
Well, it was funny because I'm watching it and I like Ellen and her stand-up's great. And I find her really entertaining. And you know, her basic shtick. I've never watched her current talk show, but I'm real glad that she got it and everything. Her basic shtick was always in stand up, and our show was rambling. She just go off on so many tangents, you know, and and it made for a really simple sitcom thing. It was a very straightforward, like you're saying. I think that you're right. It's funny. I wasn't thinking of a sitcom. I was thinking of simple little puzzles and stuff. But you're right. I think sitting down to a sitcom is a half an hour of that, which is why it's hard for sitcoms to get heavy. But of course, I always prefer the sitcoms to go ahead and get heavy sometimes. But even those, like Roseanne, could get heavy. But um, yeah, they're actually set up as, is it a low quantity? I don't know. It's, yeah, it's like a mild. It's like an entertainment drip for a half an hour, a decent sitcom.
yeah.
And you could watch a crappy one that you don't really like and get that. Like this Big Bang Theory, when that came out, I've never watched it. And I didn't, like 10 years later, I'm like, what? It's been on 10 years? What? It's been a #1 show? It doesn't make sense. But I have sit down and watch that show, and I'll get that little, yeah, it's been a half an hour. Oh, ha, ha, ha. You know, and yet I dislike the show in certain ways, but I don't hate it. So it's like, okay, yeah, that's an interesting thing. So that's entertainment. Well, what do you think about this theory? I mean, I just came up with it earlier this week when I thought, well, let's talk about this. I think my philosophy of entertainment isn't as deep as my philosophy of art. So I'm thinking, well, maybe the entertainment is that it consciously draws you in, so you have something to think about. But maybe it's this whole example is backfiring because you kind of zone out and go into the bzzz, you know, alpha wave thing or whatever. It's your TV mode. Is that conscious? I kind of wanted to hold on to my theory here and say, well, yeah, it's a little thread of consciousness that is gently going down a gentle stream instead of its normal chaos. But you're conscious. You remember what happened in the plot. Usually you'll remember a sitcom episode you've seen years later. Well, I've seen this one. So you must have been conscious. Or no, I don't know. That's like both sides of the argument. You don't even have to have an answer when I do that. I ramble too, like Ellen. That's why I like Ellen.
I think
But,
my videos are interesting because they're super boring, right? I just do all this math stuff, and when I make a video, I'll post it on Facebook, and then I'll get a bunch of complaints. Who are like, "Oh my God, that was the most boringest thing I've ever seen," right? And then
Hmm.
there's some others like Hi Flo Day and My Name are like, "Oh, that was awesome. That was just an amazing video."
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's just
Oh, people are idiots.
subjective.
People are idiots. Have you ever gotten, I like, this has happened to me many times at parties throughout my life, mostly when I was younger because of, the crowds you keep, where people at a party would, don't talk about philosophy and politics at a party. We're supposed to be partying. But usually at a party, if there's 10 or more people, I could always find the other philosophy guy that, I know that's the company on YouTube. If people have a drink, it's like, yeah, that makes me want to talk philosophy, not the opposite. So it's also a matter of what people find entertaining, and uh, and whether they can follow the thing. You know what I mean? It's not to say one's better or not, but I think a lot of people, they have to zone out when that math comes in. That's already been their reaction through their institutional learning environment. But
Yeah,
well,
so go to parties. I had something to say. I forgot it. I'm sorry.
just the complaining about, we're here to party, don't
Oh, this
talk
was it.
about Nietzsche.
There's
We're
a
here to
there's a
party. What are
YouTube
you talking about? The nature of
yeah
life.
there's a YouTube channel called We Are Change, and
Oh,
they do political stuff. And every year in the Super Bowl, he does this thing where he'll go to a bar and have a drinking contest. Um, and what he'll do is he'll go up to random people at the bar and be like, okay, we're going to ask you some trivia questions. We're basically going to ask you like two trivia questions or three trivia questions. Um, and then if you win, I'll buy you a shot. If I win, I'll buy myself a shot, right? And so the first two questions are about the game, like who is the quarterback and who is the coach and this kind of stuff. And then the third question will be like, um, what does the NDA stand for, and who is Edward Snowden? Um, and no one knows these things, and so he gets more and more drunk as the episode goes
that
on.
sounds great.
Yeah,
I
it's
think I've heard of that
pretty.
channel, but what'd you say it was?
We Are Change.
I'm sure I've run into them, but I'm gonna go check that out. That sounds
It,
fun.
it's not as good as it used to be. It used to be really entertaining. Where
No, I'm gonna go search for that particular video. I mean,
he would do this ambush journalism, where he would go up to politicians and say the politicians that had gone to the Bohemian Grove, or they'd gone to what's the other one, the Bilderberger Group,
hmm
and so he'd ask them about their experiences there, and then they just run off or tell him no.
hmm
And I just thought that was really entertaining. But ever since then, he's gotten more into more serious journalism where he does interviews now and stuff. And I just don't think
I
it's
really like on
as
the
fun.
street stuff. I would like to do if I lived in a city or if you had time or stuff. Do you ever see The Resident? She did that kind of thing. She's a liberal, sort of. It's funny because she was on YouTube and she's on RT now, Russia Today. It's funny after 6 or 8, 9 years of YouTube how some of these people have, segued over. But though I think RT is trying to do that, it seems to me RT is very conscious of the people on YouTube. I've seen them actually use clips from various things that I watch on YouTube, but usually they have something else going on. Like there's this kid, David Pakman, and I think he pretty much started YouTube or podcasting or whatever, internet, but he also has a radio program syndicated through somewhere now, and the RTU is showing them. But anyway, I don't know how we got on that. But so yeah, I don't know. I think to me, I think it is important. I mean, I'll spend a little time justifying this as a subject, be the philosophy of art. This is all different ways of looking at psychology, and we cannot leave psychology to the psychologists. They obviously don't have it figured out. They're in psychology because they're crazy and they need to figure themselves out. We're in a primitive time of leeching, in terms of our overall knowledge. We've learned a lot, but basically true psychological questions to me are philosophical, because it's like philosophy is psychology from the point of view of the subject. as opposed to psychology of the object, other people's psychology. So, we need to have, well, we don't actually need to have clarity on our ideas. We can just be entertained and not ask. But I believe in this examined life, I think, and our becoming more sophisticated creatures in this universe requires that we sort out these kinds of things. Why do we react? Why? I want to figure out if when I enjoy. So this ego shooter that I play, there's various modes. There's this one instant CTF. So you have a rifle that can shoot way far away. You have to hit perfect to get them, and you're trying to play capture the flag. Now, I want to introspect myself and know, do I enjoy killing that person? Is it some sort of humiliation of them? Because that's the only thing I can imagine why it's enjoyable to punch somebody in the face, pretend to punch somebody in the face with glass in their mouth. That seems like a rapist kind of urge. I don't see how it's enjoyable at all to a person that isn't that way, and yet I imagine it is, but I don't get it. So I want to know, if I'm playing paintball, is it enjoyable because on some ape level I'm pretending I really am killing them, and or is it, no, the shapes, it's physics. It's like playing pool where some of the balls are people and we're running around. It's the physics of it. We're on a swing, it's fun. So I want to sort out which it is, and I didn't intend for it to be about the violence, but maybe it is. And I mean,
I don't know.
games.
I play a lot of board games and magic cards and that kind of stuff with my friends.
Oh, really? You play Magic?
Yeah, and so or I haven't played in a couple of years, but used to play it a lot. And
I want to sell my cards.
oh, cool. Now whenever we play, we do this thing where we rub it in each other's faces, right? Like, oh,
yeah, well, trash talk. Yeah, come on, that's just the guy thing. Everybody knows that's fun.
Yeah, but I think it's part of it. I think.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I guess you threw that back in my face too, because I don't want to hit somebody in the mouth with glass, but I love some trash talk. I try to push it as far as you can,
Yeah, but I think I think what you're saying about philosophy is interesting. People always try and be very logical, and they want to be, with their philosophy, they want to be rational in the sense that they take the emotions out of philosophy, trying to be objective by taking their emotions out of philosophy. But we're not going to understand ourselves very well that way, right? Like, I think that the way we feel, the way we behave is important to the human experience. And so you need to kind of be emotional when you're doing philosophy.
Yeah, and I think the philosophy is all about emotion. That could be another topic that I'd like to talk about. Hey, Luca, welcome. I think, yeah, that's an interesting thing. I like the battle of wits and stuff, and I like teasing. Somehow, to me, I think there's an out where that's not real domination play.
I think it is, like, because when I'm drinking,
it's just not mean-hearted, I guess.
This is when I have problems. My friends, or some of my older friends, like to fight people when they're drinking.
Yeah,
it's
always a problem.
And they get on that. And I just always like to outsmart people or put them down in some horrible way when I'm drinking. That's how I try and that's how I release is not with hitting someone, but kind of making them feel bad emotionally.
See, I agree that that's part of the lizard brain thing you were talking about earlier. When I was reacting, no, I don't think that. I'm talking about the punching guys in the face, tie them up, raping virtual prostitutes and stuff. That I don't think comes from, our lizard thing. But there is something about, you can watch my two cats play and you can see, and they both are having fun trying to be, pin the other, little wrestling games, momentary. And so I do think that comes from our nature. Yeah,
I think Lucas says on the chat here is saying it's both. At least for me, he says. And so, yeah, I think we agree with that, Luca, that there's a lot of gray area in this conversation about entertainment, right? That it's not just, there's not going to be a clear line between any of these
Well, what
things.
about this theory I'm just trying to float about little so I mean is when entertainment is always conscious though, right? You're thinking about it. It's not the kind of thing like shifting your car while you're driving to the store and you're thinking about what you're going to get in the store and you happen to be shifting and you're not consciously really thinking about shifting. Entertainment, you know, if you find it entertaining to drive, you probably are being conscious about those things. Or do you think no, that's not going to be a fair generalization? Because I think maybe it is. Because isn't that the point? Like you don't go, I was really entertained. What were you doing? I don't remember. I mean,
I don't know. I don't drive.
no, I'm not talking about driving. I'm talking about, well, we might have to back up. And I wonder, asking you a question like this, I shouldn't make assumptions. But, to me, there's a difference. That's interesting in itself. You don't drive. You've never learned to drive or you just don't drive?
I've never had a license.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I know a few people. I think that's interesting. So, but um, but do you believe there's a difference between automatic action and a conscious action? I mean, you can go into a mode and get and do things and not remember what you were doing and not really be having the presence of, well, obviously you can be conscious and forget what you were doing, but I mean there's a mode, I think, of where you weren't you didn't have presence of mind even while you were doing it. And this is a less conscious action, a more intuitive. It's something, like breathing, you can do consciously, but mostly it's just going on, right?
Yeah, I think this is what we were talking about with the sitcom.
Right. And I'm saying entertainment is kind of, yeah, it is what we're doing, because my little theory I'm floating is that maybe what we call entertainment always has to do with getting some quanta of conscious activity, some conscious, your brain wraps itself into the facts of the show or whatever it's being conscious of, whereas it's ignoring and sort of automatically processing other things that it's not conscious of. And I'm just thinking, well, as I was thinking about it this week, is this is a topic, I'm like, maybe this is the common thread of entertainment. Obviously, anything can be entertaining to everybody. So this is what we're dealing with entertainment, just like with art, is like we all are entertained by different things. So what's the common thread? And I'm like, well, it's something you want to think about. If it's something little like your Sudoku puzzle, it's something you're thinking about, and driving isn't particularly entertaining, then you're not thinking about it. If you're a race car driver, yeah, he's entertained by driving. That NASCAR guy is paying attention to his car consciously the whole time and can probably tell you, the gear started to slip at lap 5, and you know what I mean? They were conscious about something they could have done less consciously. So maybe that's some aspect of what entertainment is, because I don't think that about art. I mean, I think you can experience art like at least paintings and stuff, but probably any kind, sort of in this automatic mode. You could just let it sink in and actually change you and affect you like art and be artistic and of value and not necessarily conscious. And maybe this would be why we would call some art good or enjoyable but not entertaining.
I think that's important. I read a lot of comics. I think my favorite form of entertainment
Hmm.
is the comic books. And there's this great one called Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud, where you kind
I've
of,
got it. Yeah, I got it on my
okay,
shelf downstairs. Yeah,
cool. So
it's it.
there's
Okay,
this
I'm
part where
glad.
it talks about panel progression, right?
Yeah.
And the artist wants to make the panels go across in some interesting way. If it was just like 3 by 3 all the time, that would get too boring. But if he does it in such a way where the reader doesn't know where to go next, like which panel is the next one in the sequence, and has to start thinking about that and guessing which is the next panel to go to, they're going to be thinking about that instead of the story, right?
Hmm.
So the artist needs to have the panels go in some way that's interesting, but you don't have to think about it. You go through the comic without having to think about which
Yeah.
panel do I look at next.
Yeah.
Um, so if you're reading a comic and you have to pause and try and figure out which panel to go to next, and the artist hasn't done their job right. So they're trying to get you to be subconscious.
This is a great example, better than films or as good as films, because comics are coming from the meant to be entertaining aspect, and only really in our generation, at least in the West, or at least in America, that it's forced in that no, this is a good way for art too. And there's something, again, it's that conscious thing. Well, let me say about that, understanding comics. That book is the most sophisticated understanding of art that I've ever read. It is my philosophy of art. I learned things in there that are part of my philosophy of art. I think it applies to all art. And it explains some things to me about, like, formula. Like, I always hated formulaic art, because to me that's like something you do for entertainment. Fine, you got a good formula, but and yet all the good artists, or like the Hitchcocks, it's always using the formula, but they do something funny with the formula. And McCloud made me realize, well, it's because you have a contract with the audience. And why do you have a contract with the audience? Because you can only present certain frames, and you have to, the things that seem like they must have happened between the frames, at least most of those should have happened, or you've broken your contract with the audience. So yes, you have to use formulas, because how else, and it's most obvious in comics, you have 4 frames and you're going to tell a whole story. But it's actually true in everything. In films and a novel, you're skipping around. You have frames as well. They might not be as easy because we don't draw a rectangle around them, but it's that negative space in between the frames where the story is really told, where what you've told the audience creates this contract of what must be happening, and that creates the continuity. And that's the whole thing. I could talk. We could do this day after day after day and go through that book. That book is, I think it's the best understanding of art in general. Period.
Let me give an example real quick, and
Sure.
I'll be right back.
So what he's talking about was this book, Understanding Comics, and it's a really, really interesting book. Definitely about anybody that's interested in comics. But as I was saying, I think it really is more general than that. He just, and it's just a great. It's not very big, and plus he tells it's all drawn as a comic, and which helps the presentation in this case, and just how you can tell a story. Like one example, he has a bunch of frames, and if you just choose which 4 out of the 16, you can tell different stories. And like, for example, you have a frame of a guy in a bar, then a frame of a car driving along the road, and then a frame of a tombstone. Well, in those three frames, you know what happened. That guy got drunk driving, but really there's no reason. You don't know that guy was in the car. You don't know that tombstone. But why would somebody draw a comic and not keep sort of this contract of what these things are related? So, hey.
I couldn't find it, but
you were looking for the book?
Yeah, no, for a different comic that had a great.
Particular.
It was like people. There was a set of stairs that went down the page, and so as you're at the page, you went backwards in the middle of the page to get down the next flight of stairs.
Right.
But you wouldn't even think about it when you read it.
Yeah.
Kind of go along with it, but I can't find it. But I want to talk about music, which I think is very interesting for art, because it's all formula, right? Music is just noise, but over time we've learned to associate different noises with different feelings, with different emotions, and so without formula, music couldn't exist at all, right? Like the way that the keys are set up, and
Mm-hmm.
This note versus this note, whereas as other cultures have different keys.
Right. If you think about music, primitive music going back is percussion, and of course then there's a formula where you use very regular tempos. You get weirder tempos, less formula or obvious formula there, as you get instruments where of course they're very heavily formalized. Any string instrument, even though they might not have done the math, they did the math with their ear to get some sort of yes, interesting point, because my wife always is like, what is with the Beatles? They had some sort of internal formula, so they spit out every one of them was a song, and there's some people that aren't necessarily as great as songwriters as them, just have that kind of ability, some extra second level formula, right? So okay, so it's formulaic.
And when you're listening to music, you don't do the math in your head.
Yeah.
You kind of
Well, your mind has its way.
Yeah, you might be listening to a piece rather intensely, or you might just be letting it wash over you and not being, like a movie soundtrack. You're probably watching the characters and whatnot, but like there's this great YouTube video. I was talking about YouTube videos, but it's called Star Wars minus Williams, and it's the throne room scene where at the end of Star Wars, Princess Leia gives Han Solo and Chewbacca and Luke Skywalker these medals. Right, you know the scene I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And so they do that whole scene without any music, because John Williams has this amazing score going on, and it's all very triumphant. But then if you take that out, then some people kind of shuffle their feet, and just kind of becomes.
That's funny. That's funny. That's also like watching advertisements with the sound off. It's really because so much sound. Eddie Izzard in his stand-up had a thing that I think is also a truism. It's like, I think it's 70% how you look, 20% how you sound, and 10% what you actually say. Didn't you say you know about Eddie Izzard, or are you familiar with Eddie Izzard?
No.
Oh,
he's a comedian. I know
he's a British comedian. He's got, that was his example of why JFK got away with saying he was a jelly donut in Berlin, and the Germans just went wild because he looked good, he sounded good. He's a jelly donut, yeah. Because when he said "Ein ich Berliner," doesn't mean you're from Berlin. It means the Berliner is like this jelly donut thing. But I'm a Frankfurter. But anyway, so it is when you take away the sound, you sometimes, it undermines how it looks. Did you ever see this? You just made me think of this here. I'm probably gonna go earlier today just because I do have to get back to finishing what I was doing.
Yeah, I think we lose a lot of dynamics if we only have the two of us here.
I didn't bug.
Being an asshole.
I love that. See, look, it always tries to. Did you ever see that one? That's an old one.
No, I never saw that before. That's quite amusing. Yeah, it's funny. You can recut movies to give them new meaning.
I know. They need to make that more legal again, some way or another. Or actually, they don't. We're in this weird world where we have a lot of good laws that just aren't enforced. So, like, they're fair use laws for something like that. I think, if you had a high enough lawyer, but people that aren't making a bunch of money can't defend themselves, so we have the. I mean, basically, that should be totally legal and encouraged by the people that own that. I mean, anyway, that was pretty well done. But yeah, no, dynamic-wise, well, I didn't bug Heitzel today because he's like, well, he wants to be able to come in and out and stuff, so I didn't necessarily want to bug him. I knew if he was online, he'd see that we'd done it. So, yeah. But I am suitably entertained, and I have plenty of more points to go through, but I do have other stuff to do, so I thought
we can go on next week.
An hour. Yeah, interesting subject. And again, I am going for the thing the feedback you're saying, where people are like, "Why'd you do that? I was bored." And it's like, well, you find something else to do. I don't mind pedantically going through stuff. As a matter of fact, I wish I'd do it more. I've started various projects to read through books, and it's just like, I can't do it. But I would go through that McCloud book page by page for 10 episodes or whatever. You know what I mean? I think that thing is so good and interesting. I'd like to figure out a way maybe to talk about it and what it says. I think there's almost a whole life philosophy in there because I'm biased, because I think that philosophy of art is really kind of a fundamental philosophy that you can live by because it includes emotion generally. And then I think he's got a really great philosophy of art, and it's about how to do whatever kind of art you want, and therefore I put a lot of value on that book. I wouldn't mind promoting it, and also I think it'd be fun just to go through it kind of slow. So maybe this is something we could talk about. I don't know exactly how we'd want to do that, but I would love to discuss that book. You know who has it? We could get Old Fan. Maybe we should get Old Fan, even if, sorry to interrupt, I was just thinking, Old Fan also is familiar with that book, and I offered to send it to her once. She already knew about it. And she wanted to talk about philosophy of art. You know, I think maybe it would be good if I could try to get Old Fan, and even if we have to move the time for a better time for her. You know, if Gary's not going to do Saturdays, I guess people were saying he's quitting on that for a bit. We could even do a Saturday night one. I'd like to get Old Fan in. That'd be fun to have a philosophy of art, but not so much artsy-fartsy art necessarily, but let's come up from the comic book world where I'm art whether you want to admit it or not, kind of at the Scott McCloud angle. So, okay, now I'm just rambling. I'm sorry. What did I interrupt? What were you going to say?
I just typed in Understanding Comics into YouTube, and there's a bunch of videos on there, so people can maybe watch. I don't know if they're any good or not. Maybe.
You know, this is something we can do pretty easily too. The way this works is we can watch videos and discuss them, and I think that might be good, especially on the days where I'm, you know, because in general I'm game for a couple hours, is how I'd like to do this. It might be cool. That could be a way. So even if people haven't watched it, we could watch a 10-minute video and discuss it that way, so the audience has a frame of reference. Yeah, because that's what I was thinking. It'd be hard to go through page by page and talk about it page by page. You break the whole, you know, the book is written as a comic strip. You can't really, it might be hard to break down into units besides the, you know, the ones he created. So, all right, well,
good.
I feel really good that we got somewhere because it's an open, fresh topic, you know, with no preconceived notion. Well, there's preconceived notions, but not a preconceived conclusion. So I got some good food for thought for this theory I'm trying to.
I'm hoping that when I come on here that I'm giving you good ideas for your book. That's kind of that's what I hope.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, no, this has been really good. I think it's good to do. I also like that I'm trying to do it regular, which is the main problem I have with this sort of thing is like, okay, every Sunday. So, but I think I hit a good time. So, and it definitely, no, it's been very fruitful conversations. And again, you know, I almost don't want to judge it on entertainment, but I have been entertained, but I really want to judge it by the ideas that come out of it. And so far, it's been really productive every time. For me, ideas during the week on this kind of stuff. So.
And I'm always hoping for more Python videos. If you have time for that kind of thing, I find them really helpful. And I'd love to be able to do some SQL in Python.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm going to do another one.
Cool. Awesome.
All right. All right.
All right. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Amanda. Bye.
Be good.